In today's video, I'll be highlighting 21 unique and unusual items that you can sell on eBay that maybe you never thought to resell, including a tiny toy that sold for over $1,000. So make sure to stay until the end for that one. Let's dive right in. Item number 1 is Southwest Christmas ornaments, and these actually have a 100% sell-through rate as well. You can see here that there are 15 active listings, so there aren't a ton of these on eBay. And filtering to solds, we see that 22 have sold, and depending on the ornament, some of these can bring in really good money. You can see here that this one sold for $125. Here is what it looks like up close. Pretty simple, says Southwest 2023. And then there are some cool vintage ones. This one went for $32, $20. Here's another one from 1992 that went for $75, so it is going to vary depending on the ornament. We love picking up ornaments, especially during the summer at yard sales. Usually they're pretty inexpensive. They're easy to store, take up very little space, and as you can see, some of these can go for great money. Item number 2 are these vintage plastic Pringle containers, and I also have seen some Spam ones as well that I'll show you. The Spam ones actually have 100% sell-through. The Pringles one isn't quite as high, but as you can see, these are selling for about $15 on average per container. So if you can find these at a yard sale and pick up a couple of them for $1 or $2, that's a great return. And then these are the Spam ones. These ones are going for a little bit more, $25. This one went for $20. So these are just very simple, unassuming plastic containers, but they're vintage and I'm sure they hold some nostalgia for some people. You can see here on the bottom it says made in the USA. So that's definitely something you're going to want to look for if you come across a container like this. Number 3 are remote control chargers and batteries. We sell these all the time. These are the Bright RC lithium ion chargers. These ones we love to pick up. Here's a good example. A lot of times we find the charger and the battery, and that's great. We'll sell them together. But even if you just come across the charger or just this battery, you can sell them separately, and they still sell really well for us. And usually these move quickly for us as well. And these don't have the highest sell-through rate. There's 23 active and only 7 that have sold. But we just sold one the other day. We sell these all the time. This one sold for $30. Another one that sold for $30 for the charger and battery. So these aren't going to bring in a ton of money, but a lot of times we can pick these up at a yard sale for $1 or $2 and sell it for $20 to $30. So it's a great return. Number 4 are Kenner Blythe dolls. As you can see here, these can bring in really good money. This one sold for $1,200. Here's another one that sold for $500, so not quite as much, but still a good chunk of money. The history on these is really interesting. They were produced in 1972 by Kenner. However, allegedly, parents complained that they were a little creepy. And you can see here that they do have really large eyes that are kind of creepy. Here's another close-up. They also have this string on the back of the head that you could pull and it would change the eye color of the doll. Later, they were picked up by another company and new editions were produced. And those can sell for decent money, but the 1972 Kenner edition is the rare one that will bring in the highest dollar. And you can see here on the back of the doll, it says Kenner. And this one also has a tag on the clothes that say Blythe by Kenner. As you can see, the clothes alone can sell for good money as well. This dress sold for $40 plus shipping. Another dress sold for $55 and $64 plus shipping. And even if they're not in the best shape, for example, this one is missing a leg, it's still sold for $500. A couple of years ago, we actually found 2 of these thrown in the doll section in a thrift store. And the big eyes are what caught our attention. So we looked into it and were shocked at how much these sold for. And we ended up selling each one for around $800. That's definitely up there with one of our favorite items we have ever found and sold. You can see here that these are some of the newer Blythe dolls. This one was 2006 by Hasbro, and they still sell for good money, $100. I believe Hasbro and then later Takara, a Japanese company, began to produce new editions of these dolls. So you may come across newer editions and they can still bring in decent money. And while we're talking about dolls, in the same vein is number 5, which are vintage wire doll stands. And these are super simple and unassuming, so much so that if you didn't know what you were looking for, you might mistake it for trash. But you can see, you can sell these on eBay. This one sold for $25 plus shipping, $19 plus shipping, another $20 for shipping. Here's the double that sold for $30 plus shipping. So if you're lucky enough to come across these at a yard sale and can pick them up for a couple of dollars, that's a great flip. Let me show you a close-up of these. And these actually had a fairly high sell-through rate. When I checked, it was about 76%, which isn't too bad. And as you can see, these are very simple wire stands, but they are sought after on eBay. Number 6 are Star Wars limited edition soda cans. Here's a great example. This one is a gold Yoda Pepsi can, limited edition. A lot of 2 sold for $60 plus shipping. And here's another one of these gold Yoda Mountain Dew cans. It sold for $99 plus shipping. And these are really cool too. I came across this as I was researching the soda cans. It is a Star Wars droid cooler box. It seems that these were produced in Japan from what I gathered. So they're probably going to be harder to find. But if you're lucky enough to come across one of these, they can bring in good money. You can see they sold for $449, $439. This one sold for $400. They all come from Japan though, so that's what leads me to believe that they are produced in Japan. Let me know in the comments if you know any history on these. My son loves Star Wars, so I just thought this was a really cool item and it would be one that I would love to find. Number 7 are vintage Jell-O Easter egg molds, and these have an insane sell-through rate right now. There are 144 currently listed, and then filtering to solds, 603 have sold. So keep in mind, sell-through rates are constantly changing, but there seems to be a huge demand for these right now. These are definitely nostalgic for me. I remember my mom making these when I was a little kid, and we actually picked up a few of these at a yard sale a while ago because we wanted to make them for our kids as well. I'll show you a close-up here. It says Jell-O on the handle. I know that there are some cheaper like knockoffs. Those probably won't sell super well on eBay, but if you come across these authentic vintage Jell-O ones, you can see that these sell for decent money, probably between $15 and $20 for each mold. This was a lot of 10 that sold for $125, which is crazy. So don't sleep on the Jell-O Easter egg molds. Number 8 are dental scraps. Now you have to be careful with this one. You can't sell body parts or teeth on eBay, but it appears that you can sell gold dental scraps. And because it's gold, you can see that it does bring in good money. Again, you definitely want to be careful with this one and always double check eBay policies, but it's definitely up there for one of the more rare, unique items that I have seen selling on eBay. Number 9 is a Logitech mouse ball. I mentioned this in one of my recent What Sold videos. We sold one of these mouse balls for around $30. This one sold for $15. This sold for $17.95. And this mouse sold for $30. Let me show you a close-up of this. So this is the mouse. We actually bought this mouse and it didn't work. So we just took out this ball and sold it as is, and it sold really quickly and for decent money. So just a good reminder to always consider parting out items, even if your item is broken. A lot of times you can part out the different pieces and still make good money that way. And I love that because it doesn't end up in the landfill. You're still able to get it out to people that need it. So it's a win-win. Number 10 is another mouse. This is a popsicle vintage mouse. These are going for crazy money. This one sold for $189, $105. This one was $325. You can see Y2K is a keyword that they used a lot in this listing. So again, this is definitely another nostalgia piece for people. And this is actually really cool. It has these floating popsicles right here. This is what the underside looks like. Again, you can see the floating popsicles, and there is the tag. So this is definitely probably going to be one of those rare items that's hard to come across, but if you're lucky enough to come across it, now you know that it holds a lot of value and can bring in some great money on eBay. Number 11 is feathers. You can see here these peacock feathers sold for $27 plus shipping. Here are some parrot feathers that sold for $77.89. A lot of people use these for fly tying. That's definitely a keyword that you'd want to include if you're selling feathers. Here are some pheasant feathers, some more parrot feathers. So as you can see, there's definitely a market for this, and these feathers can bring in some decent money. Number 12 kind of goes along the same vein as we're talking about birds, and that is goose bands and mallard duck bands. A lot of times hunters like to collect these bands. You can see that this lot of 22 bands sold for $45. A lot of times hunters will have a lanyard like this where they will collect these bands. And as you can see, these can sell for decent money. This is a vintage federal duck band, sold for $19. Here's another lot that sold for $70. So it is going to depend on the band, of course. And I feel like this is one that could be easily overlooked by a lot of other people. So definitely a unique one to be aware of. And as I was researching these duck bands, I came across number 13, which are vintage duck calls. These can bring in really good money, apparently. You can see this one sold for $225. This one was just $15 plus shipping, so it is going to depend on the duck call. Not all of them hold the same value, of course. But this one sold for $650. And there are several more in the $100 to $200 range. And this one even sold for $1,000. This is the Chick Majors Vintage Earliest Water Label Arkansas Duck Call. Here is the label up close. So anytime you come across a vintage duck call, definitely take the time to look it up. It could hold a lot of value. For number 14, we have unopened beauty products and vintage perfumes and colognes, especially fragrances that have been discontinued. You know, people fall in love with certain fragrances, and if they can't find it anymore at the store, they turn to places like eBay to find their favorite fragrances. Now, you do have to be careful. According to my understanding, the perfume has to be new, sealed. It can't be half opened like you used to be able to sell. You might be able to sell it in collections, but to err on the side of caution, stick to new, unopened perfumes or colognes or beauty products. But you can see that a lot of these bring in good money. This is a vintage Vanilla Fields cologne spray. It sold for $24.99. It has this cool frosted bottle. So anytime we come across these vintage products at yard sales, we always like to look them up because a lot of them do hold good value. Number 15 are boxes. Vintage Nike boxes can hold quite a bit of value. You can see that this vintage 1970s Nike box sold for $68.88. Here's one that sold for $35 and a lot of three that sold for $229. So anytime you come across a cool old vintage box, take the time to look it up. And also Apple boxes can be really good to resell. For example, this is a lot of 17 that sold for $29.99. So not a ton of money, but a lot of times people just throw these out anyway. So you might be able to gather them up and sell them as a lot. Or even if you have your own Apple boxes laying around the house from your old iPhones or AirPods and whatnot, you can throw them up on eBay. This sold for $8 plus shipping. So it's not a ton of money, but if it's something that you were just going to throw away anyway, or that's just collecting dust in your house, then it might be good to throw it up on eBay. We are almost through this list. Thanks for hanging in with me. If you are still watching, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it, and subscribe for more videos like this. Number 16 is the Ravensburger Winnie the Pooh puzzle, or Ravensburger, depending on how you pronounce it. This is a Ravensburger 1,000-piece puzzle, and it sold for $50 plus shipping. Another one that sold for $51, and this one for even more at $82. I feel like Winnie the Pooh is having a moment right now, so definitely one to keep an eye out for. Number 17 are vintage tin oyster cans. I thought this was really unique. This isn't one that I had thought to sell on eBay. You can see that these sell for decent money too, $36. This one wasn't quite as much at $11. But this one sold for $60. And this one sold for $300 of vintage Crescent Oyster half-gallon tin. So I'm sure there are collectors out there that like to have these cans. This vintage Woodfields Oyster gallon can went for $69.99. So another one you don't want to sleep on if you're lucky enough to come across these. For number 18, we have empty ink cartridges. This is one that we actually sell a lot. We sell a lot of ink, but also just the empty cartridges can sell as well. A lot of times you can lot these together and sell them. This is a lot of 10 that sold for $37 plus shipping, a lot of 4 that sold for $10. So it's going to depend. It might not be a ton of money, but if it's something that's headed to the trash anyway, then that's great if you can throw it up on eBay and make some money from it. And generally you're going to want to stay with just the name brand cartridges like HP, Canon. You don't want to go with the cheap knockoff versions. Those generally don't hold as much value. Number 19 is human hair. So while you can't sell human body parts, you can sell hair. So if you have long hair and you decide to cut it off, of course you can donate it to Locks of Love or something like that, but you also have the option of selling it on eBay. You can see here several long locks of blonde curly hair sold for $30 plus shipping. And I was seeing a lot of dreadlocks selling for really good money. This one sold for $33, but some of these were selling for big money, like this one, 24-inch dreadlocks sold for $950. And here's a 24-inch ponytail that sold for $100. Some more dreadlocks that brought in $875. So good to be aware of. If you have longer hair and you decide to cut it, you might want to consider selling it on eBay. Number 20 is the My Pet Monster plush. This has a sell-through rate over 100%. You can see there are 121 active listings, and filtering to solds, we see 158 have sold. Again, these are vintage, so you're not going to find them readily out in the wild. But if you're lucky enough to come across one of these, definitely grab it. This one sold for $149 plus shipping. This was $80, so a little bit less. Here's another one for $150. These are really nostalgic for me too. My older brother had one of these, so it's just cool to see them here on eBay. And this one even sold for $349. I guess these were one of the first dolls that were geared toward boys. In 1986, these came out and gained a lot of popularity. It originally came with these handcuffs, so just a really cool, unique, nostalgic piece to keep an eye out for. And last but not least is this Lego Star Wars Cloud City Boba Fett minifigure. Apparently these are ultra rare and they go for big money. This one sold for $1,500. Here are a few more that sold for $1,100. This was a best offer, but it was listed at $1,700, $860, $500, and this one sold for $1,200. Let me show you this up close so you know what to keep an eye out for if you're lucky enough to come across one of these. My son loves Legos, so he is constantly looking for Legos at yard sales. And this is one that he will definitely be on the lookout for, I am sure. So of course this item is rare, but I always like to be aware of items rare or not, because if you're lucky enough to come across one of these, then you have the knowledge and you know to stop and look at it rather than just pass on by because you weren't aware of it. I hope this list brought some value to you, help you recognize a few new items to consider selling on eBay, and will help you pick up a few new things when you're out yard selling this season. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I put out a new video every week, and I hope to see you in the next one.